Well, the census is important to everyone in our country. It is about political representation in the House of Representatives, in our state houses, even sometimes in our local communities. It is about $300 billion that is distributed largely through population figures from the federal government, but those numbers are also true in terms of how states often decide in their formulas, how education funding, healthcare funding, to mention a few, will be distributed as well. And then there's the private sector that uses the demographic information from the census to make all types of business decisions on investments, where they'll open up a new store, where they'll expand their business, and that means jobs and economic opportunity. So it is about representation, it is about distribution of federal dollars, it is about economic opportunity. And for the Latino community, which has been the fastest growing community in the country and the largest minority, obviously, in all of those categories, they have a very big stake in making sure that their representation is recognized by virtue of the census, and therefore their ability to be better represented in the House of Representatives, as well as in the state houses and in local communities, how their kids get the necessary resources to get a quality education, what businesses are going to open up in their communities. If we get a good census count, I think we're going to see a dramatic growth in the Latino population beyond the last decade, when we also saw a very significant growth. I think a lot of that growth will be not, as some people might think about immigration, will be about Latinos being born second and third generations and others in this country, and it will probably be younger than the rest of the population by over a decade, which has significance for our country in terms of its future. As the nation grays, the Latino community will increasingly be turned to as a younger community within the overall American community for the quality of life for so many of our citizens. Well, a good census count where the Latino community gets fully counted as well with all Americans means more representation in the House of Representatives. It means more representation in the state houses. It means more representation on the city council. It also means monies that they as taxpayers will see back coming into their communities in education and healthcare, and it will mean job opportunities created by the private sector who uses that census information to make business decisions. Well, one of the importance of the census is, as we look at this Hispanic community in one context, those who are united by heritage and maybe a language that they originated in, although English is overwhelmingly their language now. There are differences in this community. There is the Caribbean Latino from Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, the greatest single number of Hispanic Americans, which are Mexican Americans, but there's also a huge increase in Latin Americans, those who have come from Latin America. So depending on which part of our country you go to, you'll find these pockets. There are differences, clearly, between them, but in terms of a common agenda and needs, there are overarching opportunities in which they come together. Well, in the last presidential election, I said a year before then that the road to the White House comes through the Hispanic community. And the reason I said that is, if you look not just at the large population growth and the large numbers of Latinos who are becoming not only U.S. citizens but registered voters and going out to vote, a dramatic increase in the rate in which they went out to vote. That is a political maturity. Secondly, look at the states where they're located. They're the states, overwhelmingly, that are necessary to win, both in swing states as well as in states with large electoral votes. So, in fact, they are pivotal in terms of deciding who sits in the White House, and the enormous vote they gave to Barack Obama is an example of that. In addition to that, you see a dramatic growth in state houses, in mayors, growing across the country. And the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials has seen their membership rise pretty dramatically. And finally, it also is a community that has growing economic muscle. It has $1 trillion domestic marketplace spending. And of course, as it harnesses that $1 trillion, that will also be harnessed in terms of representation as well. Well, I've seen it in real tangible ways. First of all, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the Hispanic Americans who represent their districts in the United States House of Representatives, has grown significantly from when I came, and certainly in the last decade. We went to a high watermark in our nation's history where there were 3 United States senators of Hispanic descent. For 30, 40 years there had not been any, and then we went to 3. One of them ended up becoming the Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar. One of my former colleagues in the House became the Secretary of Labor. Those are non-traditional roles in which Latinos are now playing significant roles for our entire country. And certainly, the nomination by President Obama of Joe Sotomayor is a landmark historic breakthrough. She will be the first Hispanic on the United States Supreme Court, eminently qualified. So all of this is coming together at a very critical moment. And beyond that, you even see a greater series of sub-cabinet members and people being appointed in the Foreign Service in our country from our community. So as the Hispanic community continues to deepen its American roots here in this country, in some cases, clearly there have been people here whose families go back generations as Americans, and then others who are recent arrivals. But their political ability in terms of making a difference in our country has grown dramatically.